Hello, my name is Dr. Queen Ekurari. I am the founder and the coordinator of Flashy Wings Ministries, a ministry that is dedicated to cater for the needs of women. Today, I'm going to talk about a nice topic, and it's for single and people planning to get married. So, it's all about planning your wedding, and this topic is centered around the wedding ceremony and planning for a wedding, and also to help people to ensure that uh, they are making the right choices and the right budgets and everything related to the wedding, because I do understand that wedding can be sometimes demanding and people don't want to do anything for shame or for show. But also we have to be wise about how we go around planning our weddings. So I know that we are in a time where there's so much hype about this planning a wedding, just for us to be wise about it. And let's look at the Bible and see what God talks about planning. And I'm going to read Luke 14:28 to 33. And it says, suppose one of you wants to build a tower. Won't you first sit down and estimate the cost to see if you have enough money to complete it? For if you lay the foundation and are not able to finish it, everyone who sees it will ridicule you. Saying this, person began to build and wasn't able to finish. So Jesus is trying to say, before you build something, build the house, you have to count the cost. You can't just get up and say, I want to build a house, and you've not counted the cost. Because if you lay the foundation and you can't finish the building, then you give room for people to ridicule you. So in other words, it's talking about planning our lives. Okay, if you want to plan a wedding, you have to count the cost as well. You can't just think from the space and say, okay, when I get to the bridge, I cross it. So it's talking about planning. Also, I'm going to read Proverbs 14 verse 8. The wisdom of the prudent is to give thought to their ways, but the folly of fools is deception. So it's talking about when people are wise, they critically look at things. They think through it, they deliberate on it, they think thoroughly before they make decisions. But foolish people are always living in deception. Okay? James 1 verse 5. If anyone lacks wisdom, let him ask God, who gives generously to or without reproach, and it will be given to him. So we need to ask God for wisdom, especially when it comes to things that needs to do with planning. So we need to ask God for ways that we can go about it. Galatians 6 verse 7. Do not be deceived, God cannot be mocked. A man reaps what he sows. Okay, so don't just remember that. You can't deceive yourself. What you put in, that's what you get. Proverbs 21 verse 5. The plans of the diligent lead surely to abundance, but everyone who is hasty comes only to poverty. So when you are diligent and you are making a plan, you are preparing your way for abundance. But when you are hasty, just know that poverty is knocking at your door. Unfortunately, some people are so hasty when it comes to marriage and marriage planning. Proverbs 24 verse 27, it says, put your outdoor work in order and get your field ready. After that, build your house. And I find this really very interesting, that the Bible is saying that you should put your life in order, your outdoor, get your fields ready. So make sure that you are in a position where your field is what you do, like a farmer. Get everything ready before you build your house. So I can see this in a way, before you think about marriage, make sure that some important factors are already in place, because some people want to get married without considering factors that needs to be in place. Because while we're talking about these are the kind of things that leads to disaster in marriage. I have seen so many people marry into disaster because they are not ready, they are not planning, they're just hasty for nothing, and they have not prepared themselves properly for what they are going into. So when you want to marry, the Bible is saying put your fields in order before you build your house. And also it's saying that before you think of doing something, please count the cost first. Okay, we are in a time where marry everywhere. When people are getting married, there's so much excitement all around the place. You see it on Facebook, on TV, everywhere. Marriage has become so such a expensive gesture these days. And apart from that, there's so much focus on wedding. People are just getting married because they want to experience this whole wedding experience, just have the wedding experience, and not even mindful of the marriage. So the people pay so much attention in the wedding, not the marriage, and that's not, it's not supposed to be so. But today we're just going to look at, you know, things you should do that will help you when you're planning for your wedding, just to help ladies planning for their wedding. And one of the things I have here is, don't put yourself under pressure. You know, a lot of people make fuss about wedding. You know, we have to put everything together. You know, we have to do this. There's so much pressure. There's so much force about wedding these days. It was not so before. You know, wedding was done according to how according to your budgets and everything. But these days, people tend to go beyond their budgets because, you know, it has become so elaborate these days. So I'm just advising you not to put yourself under pressure. Get essential things that you need. Things that you don't need, don't bother about it. Also, don't put your spouse under pressure, because a lot of ladies know how to do that. They put the groom under pressure that things must be done this way. We have to get this done. We have to, you know, if it's not important, don't, you know, stress yourself. Just be supportive and helpful towards each other. Look at what you can do. Look at, you know, just know what is within your capacity. So don't put yourself under pressure. Wedding is just for a day or two. The marriage is for a lifetime. I have seen where wedding preparatory pressure encroached into the marriage, and some people, you know, were having serious problems in their own marriage because they were trying to get married. You don't want that in your own home, and it's caused a lot of couples so many problems. Some people never got through that, they end up in divorce. So don't put yourself under any kind of pressure. Do what you can do and leave what you cannot do. Okay. And I'll also tell some women as well that, you know, don't think that because something happened in marriage, A must be like that in B. So because that's women, I think women tend to come more with the pressure than men. So you have to learn to be calm and understand that your own marriage is unique to you, is special to you, and do it in your own way. Sometimes I find the simple weddings more interesting than even the elaborate ones, because sometimes I find big weddings more disorganized and simple family weddings much, you know, enjoyable, in my own personal opinion. Okay, the next point is, don't put all your savings in your wedding. I've seen many couples do that. Many people have done that in the past, whereby they put all their savings into their weddings, believing that, you know, when they get married there'll be gifts and donations, people support them financially. I mean, people tend to do that, but don't make such assumption, you know, under probability, because you don't know what you're going to get out of the wedding. So I encourage couples that it's very tempting, because when you are planning for a wedding, sometimes people tend to go over their budget, which is usually the case. But I also want to encourage you to try and keep some money aside. Don't put everything you've got, so that after the wedding and the honeymoon is over, you have some cash to fall on to, you know, to get back to your get back on your feet again. Because since weddings are financially driven, sometimes it can actually empty your savings. But don't put everything, keep some money aside. So I encourage you to do that. Keep some money aside, it's very important. Okay, the next point I want to talk about is, don't compare your wedding with another, because a lot of women, so especially women, treat wedding like a contest. It's foolishness to compare your wedding with somebody else's wedding. So when you're getting married, make sure it's your own unique thing. Do things in your own way. Don't go and start making a fuss on things that because somebody else has had this kind of things in their wedding, you want to have it in your own wedding. Just do your wedding in your own way. However, that doesn't mean that you cannot get inspiration from other people's weddings. You can, you know, on how to go about yours. It's good. You can learn. You can take some tips from other people's weddings. But what you shouldn't do is to compete, or you just want to show off. Wedding is not an opportunity to show off. So please, don't compete. Just enjoy your day in your own unique way. Another point on planning for a wedding is keep things simple, not complicated. Some people kind of make things more complicated than it is. Okay, if you cannot afford a wedding ring, you can afford a cheap one. Once you want to renew your vows later in future, you can get an expensive one. If you cannot buy yourself a wedding gown, you can hire one from the bridal shop which is cheaper. If you cannot have a honeymoon by the seaside, you can stay in your house. I mean, try to keep things simple. It doesn't have to go through the normal method or normal standard of things. So keep things simple, not complicated. It doesn't have to. So women will say, "I need a diamond ring. It has to be a diamond ring. It's a one day thing." Of course, I know it's a once in a lifetime something. I know it's once in a lifetime, but that doesn't mean that everything you should live beyond your means, so everything has to be spotless. Whatever you can get it. What you cannot get, just leave it. At the end of the day, marriage it's a lifetime. It's a continuous process, and there are some things you might not really can afford during your wedding ceremony, but in the process of the marriage, as the years goes on, you'll be able to afford these things. So don't complicate things, just keep it simple. Could remember this lady, she was getting married and she just wanted a very complicated marriage. She was telling her the husband was paying for it, the groom was paying for everything, and she said, "I need limousine, you need to go and book a 5-star hotel, in the reception, a 5-star hotel," and she's got all these things she wanted done, and the man was far financially, he was far from that, and she wouldn't listen to all of that, and this is wrong. When you do that kind of when people do these kind of things. So keep things simple and not complicated. The next point I want to ask here is, don't ask people, because I have seen situations where people are getting married and they expect a rich parents or rich relatives to pay for it. Well, if these people have actually accepted to pay for it or to sponsor the wedding, that is fine, but don't expect anybody to pay or for your wedding. So I do understand that when people are getting married, people want to support them financially. It should be a bonus, really. So I would tell people to actually save a substantial amount of money before they can even think of getting married. So that's what Jesus Christ was trying to say. Before you build a house, you must count the cost. So save some money and to plan for your own wedding and take responsibility for your own wedding. I could remember those days in Africa, somebody's getting married and they come to your house and they say, "We are getting married, please can you help us make the cake?" They go to another person's house, "We are getting married, can you help us rent the hall?" Go to another person's house, not even mindful of the people's financial situation. "Can you help us with what food will you cook?" And you see, people are getting married and depending on people to sponsor it, asking people to pay for it. And I don't think that's the right thing to do. I don't believe that there's any integrity to that as well. So please, I want you to save and pay for your own wedding. Okay, the next point I want to add here is comfortable home. I know that there's some culture when a man gets married, he brings the wife to the family home to stay. It's cultural, but some people, it's not a cultural thing. Some men believe that it's just a temporary thing to get an accommodation for the farm, just a temporary arrangement. Well, most times this kind of arrangement does not benefit the lady, because she having to cope with her marital status and also coping with in-laws might be a bit too much for her. So I would advise that the first priority is that you, as especially the man, must have a house Even if it's a small room, it doesn't have to be anything so unique or special, just where they can start up from. You should have at least a place where, a home where you and your wife can start up from. So a comfortable accommodation, a comfortable home should be a priority, number one priority in your wedding plan. Keeping expectations reasonable is something you have to look at as well. Do not celebrate unrealistic ideas, or do things sensibly. So just keep your expectations reasonable. Be realistic with what is on ground. Don't start making up creating things where you know that it's not possible. So be realistic with your wedding plans. The next point I have here is working according to your budget plan. I know that weddings are financially demanding, but you need to have a budget. Yourself and your spouse need to sit down, be honest with each other on how much you are ready to put into this, and work with your budget plan. Even if you need to go out of your budget, it should be you should still take out that money and still be comfortable to do that. And also, if people will start putting pressure on you, if people are putting pressure on you, since it's your wedding, now ask them, if don't put pressure on me, or you pay for it. So work according to your budget, because sometimes people spend so much money on weddings, and when they look back, they just realize that it was just a waste of money and waste of resources. So it's not time. Weddings are not time for wasting of resources. So plan and work according to your budget. The next point I have here in planning a wedding is unrealistic fairy tales and fantasies. Okay, especially for women, I know that weddings are really very unique to women, especially when you especially when you are young. You've already fantasized your wedding day and everything. Women start having marital fantasy from a very tender age, so making their day come true is worthwhile. But I also want to say to women that please don't go and look at celebrity wedding magazines or royal family wedding videos and start expecting yourself your wedding to be just that. Meanwhile, you're on a modest salary, your fiancé is on a modest salary. So please keep your fantasy, keep away from unrealistic fantasies or fairy tales. They are not real. Just make your wedding as real as you can. Okay. And also, I want to talk about external pressure, or what I call external influence. Because I do understand that when it comes to marriage, planning a wedding, other people are involved in the process. Your family, your friends, everybody is trying to create a perfect wedding for you. What I would say is that in that kind of situation, too many cooks spoils the food. You take a useful advice and just throw away advice that are not useful at all, because what happens is that everybody wants have their own idea, but it's your wedding and you are the one responsible for how you want the wedding to be. Also, there are sometimes external crisis can become a problem, because some parents want an elaborate wedding, but they don't want to put any money to it. They want this grand ceremony, but they don't want to pay for it, and they start putting pressure, especially on the groom, that the groom should put more money on the budget and everything like that. I think this time couples, the people getting married, should stand their ground and say, this is how much you can put we can put on it, and this is what we are going to put in the wedding. However, that doesn't mean that you should put something substantial, because some people wedding budget is very low, but something substantial that honestly it's enough for the wedding. So anybody that wants a grand wedding should go and should put money into it as well. Wedding is not a time to feed anybody's ego. So you're going to have such external pressures. Your in-laws might say the money is not enough, there might be quarrels here and there, but even that is another way of standing up. It's not a time for couples to start fighting, because what happens is that when external pressures start building up, the bride and the groom to be will start having arguments and clashes. That's not the time for that, but it's for people to come together, stand strong together, and tell your families, this is what we can do and this is what we cannot do, and These kind of things will also reflect on how you'll be able to deal with external influences when you're actually married. So yes, it's very important for you to handle other influences, very well when you're planning the wedding. Finally, keep yourselves informed. Communication is very important when you're planning a wedding. So talk to each other if there are adjustments to be made. Talk to each other about it. If there are changes, talk to each other about it. Don't just assume that, okay, so change things without letting the other person know. There's no room for confusion. So keep each other informed. And I definitely believe that communication is an essential part of planning a wedding. And if you can follow these tips thoroughly, then you will have a wonderful wedding ceremony. Nothing for show, nothing for shame, but something beautiful, something unique. It's your day. Sit and enjoy it. It's not for you to be stressed out or pressured, but it's for you to really have fun. I hope these tips will help. Thank you.